Hi, good evening, Southeast Texas. Hope you're doing well. Continuing to update you as far as what we expect with Hurricane Delta and any possible impacts. We'll also be taking your questions on this live special Facebook update. But let's get to the basics right now. And we have a very powerful Category 4 hurricane. Some idea that an eye is starting to form, and it is moving to the west-northwest at 17 miles an hour. Now forecast to go in to the northeast tip of the Yucatan Peninsula, somewhere between Cozumel and Cancun, very, very close to a Cat 5 status with winds of 155 miles an hour. It's in a pristine area for developing and strengthening further, as the water temperatures out into the northwest Caribbean are very warm. Lots of energy for this storm to continue to strengthen, and very light shear over the storm right now. So there's no reason this should not continue to further strengthen as it takes aim on the northeastern tip of the Yucatan and then moves off towards the north and west. What we're looking at is infrared satellite imagery, and what we see is banding and also gravity waves that are propagating outwards from the center of circulation and spilling outwards in all directions from the storm. That air mass coming up out of the storm, out of the plane, and then moving outwards. And that is indicative of a an environment that's very conducive to further strengthening. Otherwise, the storm is being guided towards the west-northwest due to high pressure in the eastern Gulf of Mexico and right over Florida. And the big question is, where is the western edge of that area of high pressure? When the storm starts feeling that western edge, then it will turn north, and then to the northeast as a trough of low pressure moves out and into Texas, hopefully steering this off to the north and east, recurving it to the north and east. So again, it's going to continue to move towards the west-northwest, and there are hurricane warnings obviously in effect, as you can see, for the northeast tip of Florida. There you go, 155 mile per hour winds as it moves towards Cancun, it looks like. It goes out into the Gulf of Mexico, the southern Gulf of Mexico, weakens to a Cat 3, but then strengthens back to a Cat 4 with winds of 130 miles an hour. Again, the western edge is where we need to know where this is going. Right now, the balloons that go up in the atmosphere, the weather balloons, all from Brownsville back over to Lake Charles and also over towards, say, Louisiana, are going up every 6 hours. So instead of them normally going up every 12 hours, these weather stations tethered on a balloon go from the surface all the way to the top of the troposphere, and that records temperature, wind speed, wind direction, and that all goes into the forecast model. So they've increased the number of flights up into the atmosphere to every 6 hours rather than every 12 hours. We've also got the regular NOAA planes that are going in and investigating this storm, and also the G6, which is a high altitude hurricane reconnaissance plane that also does drop sondes from the top of the storm down. So more data is being ingested, so the forecast models will have more to look at and hopefully try to hone down where this storm is going to eventually make landfall. But we do expect it to strengthen to a Cat 4 with winds of 130 miles an hour Thursday afternoon. Then the western edge is pivotal to where this storm will make landfall into the central Gulf of Mexico. Where is that western edge of that high? We'll also be watching a trough of low pressure up into Texas, hopefully turn this to the north and then north and east. Do not need it to go past 95 degrees longitude, otherwise we got some issues. But right now, with this storm making landfall over towards, say, Intercoastal City, Lafayette, and then off to the north and east, that will place it 100 miles to our east. Small wind field associated with this storm is forecast right now. Tropical storm force winds may get to the Sabine River, the way we're looking at it right now. Still, the eastern half of southeast Texas is within the cone of uncertainty. So right now, at this point, as long as the storm behaves and goes in where it's forecast, somewhere into Acadiana, then limited impacts are expected. Certainly no surge. Rainfall is tolerable, 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches. It's the wind is the big question. The good thing about this is that once this storm does turn north, it's going to be hauling. And I mean going fast. You can see the distance between these 2 points is quite a number of miles. So that means the storm is going to be probably moving at least 15, maybe 20 miles an hour towards the north and then northeast. And that's going to be Friday evening and Friday night. So once it hits, it's going to move through fairly quickly. That's the good news. So rainfall not going to be an issue out of this system. No stalling expected. The question is, what are going to be the wind impacts? Certainly no surge. It's the wind is going to be this issue with this storm. And right now I think it's very limited as long as it goes along this track. And one of the reasons that it will be weakening is because of increasing shear. The water temperatures are cooler up into the northern Gulf of Mexico, and there's dry air over us. That's going to be sucked into that hurricane. So there's 3 reasons that we do expect this to be on a weakening trend. Again, the main steering issues or patterns is this high over into the eastern Gulf of Mexico and a trough of low pressure. This is what we call a short wave in through the Four Corners area. And again, that high, the western edge of that high will be pivotal to where we see it turns towards the north and then off to the northeast as this trough of low pressure begins to move into East Texas, hopefully picking this up and keeping it over and away from southeast Texas. Don't want to wish this on Louisiana, certainly not. But that's where we're thinking right now. Probably a little bit further to the west. We need to update this over towards Vermilion Parish. But again, we're still within the cone. It could still move closer to our area, hopefully not. But that's where we're at this point. So this is from the Hurricane Center. Okay, I did not make this graphic. This is their data. This is their numbers. And at this point, it's showing anywhere between a, say, 50 to 60% probability that we will see tropical storm form wind gusts. That's 39 miles an hour or higher. Right now, the way I see it, low-end tropical storm force wind gusts are possible. We're talking 39, 40, maybe 45 mile per hour. That's the worst case scenario on that track that I can see at this point. But again, it'll move quickly and off to the north and east, and we'll see improving weather coming up by, say, Saturday afternoon. It'll be a thing of the past the way it looks right now. Rainfall amounts, 2 to 3, maybe 4, obviously. It's going to be heavier rainfall, 7 to maybe 10 inches over towards Kaplan, Intercoastal City, Lafayette, and through Vermilion and Acadia parishes into Acadiana. Otherwise, we'll go over it again. The worst of the weather is coming up Friday night. We're talking 9, 10, 11 o'clock at nighttime, maybe a little bit earlier than that, but that's what we're thinking. 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches of rainfall. Storm surge, I just don't think it's going to be an issue out of this. We're going to be on the clean side of the storm. I think wind gusts 25, very doable. Maybe some gusts to tropical storm force wind, very low threat from tornadoes. And that's what we're looking at right now. 7-day forecast shows the worst of the weather coming up Friday night. And again, it's going to be improving quickly coming up Saturday morning and into Saturday afternoon. So that's what we're looking at as far as Hurricane Delta, as far as its path from what we know right now. Any questions?
A couple of them. One, first of all, from our own Kelsey Johnson. Can you explain why the tropics are so active this year? Why have we seen so many storms in the Gulf?
Just the perfect prescription. We have exceedingly low shear, water temperatures, what we call anomalies. How much warmer than normal are the water temperatures? And they're well above normal. And we're in La Nina. That is cut down on the shear. So a very active wave train. Several systems coming off of the coast of Africa have produced a number of tropical waves that have been able to organize and develop. So just 3 of those major factors have come together to produce a very active season so far.
When will Southeast Texas start seeing the impacts of this?
I think Friday afternoon. We could start seeing some gusts maybe in the morning, say Friday morning, but I don't really think the real weather will start to hit until late Friday afternoon and then Friday evening. The worst of it, I think. That's where we're at right now. That's where we're at. Again, a lot of questions right now. Don't have all the answers, but again, we don't know exactly where this is going to hit. Let's be real transparent with you. We don't know exactly where this is going to hit in Louisiana. I think it's going to stay east of us, but the exact track of that, will be dictated on when that turn occurs, and I don't think we'll see that until probably late Wednesday or Thursday. Any other questions?
I'm trying to see. Most of them you basically answered in the last couple bits there. So,
Okay. Well, let me just go through this again. I'll go through my spiel and we'll see if we get any more questions. But this is a strengthening storm. It's in a very favorable environment for further strengthening. In fact, this is going to be very close to Cat 5 when it makes landfall into the northeastern tip of the Yucatan Peninsula, somewhere between the Cancun and Cozumel. This is Cozumel, a little island right there. And again, a very favorable environment. Water temperatures are very warm. Shear is very light. Just everything is a go for further strengthening as this heads on off towards the west-northwest. It's being guided by high pressure over the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and that high is going to be pivotal, get it out right, pivotal to how far west this goes. The further west this goes, the more impact we could have once it makes that turn. So at this point, the storm is expected to make landfall and then move into the southern Gulf of Mexico as we work into Wednesday afternoon. Again, where is the western edge of that high? It's going to follow the outside edge of that high. So by Thursday afternoon, it better start turning to the northwest and then north. But notice it strengthens once again to a Cat 4, turns to the north, and then starts weakening because of those three factors I just mentioned. Then it heads towards Acadiana. That's in central Louisiana, over towards Lafayette, Intercoastal City. But again, it's going to be moving very quickly. So that places us on the clean side of the storm. That means little impact from storm surge. It also means that rainfall will not be an issue this round because it's going to be moving very quickly. And also, I don't think the wind field is going to be that big. The worst of the winds will be obviously on the dirty side, the east of where the center makes landfall. But again, we're in the cone. It could still shift to the west. Again, very iffy at this point because of where the western edge of that high is. If the high is strengthening or stronger, then this cone will shift to the west. We just don't know at this point. Other questions?
How strong is the low system that you were talking about?
It is a decent shortwave, and it is winds here. Let's see, that is 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 80 90 knots, 90 miles an hour over and through eastern Texas. Okay, central portions of East Texas. Hurricanes don't move against those. They move with, not against. They don't go like that. That's just not going to happen. So if you're thinking Houston or something further to the west, I just don't see that happening. It's at least that's not what I've seen in my lifetime. If anything, they're going to flow, and this is at 34,000 feet, so this will be tall enough for the storm to be using this steering flow. So again, it's really between this jet and the high. You can see the high here. If it extends a little further to the west, so it's got to go somewhere between these two areas right here. That's why we think that it is going to trek on off towards the north and then north and east. This may be a little bit further to the west, but not going to go with the European. The European has, if you watch me at any length of time, you know how much I love that model, but it has not done well this year. It did very poorly with Cristobal and with Laura. Remember, I was saying that this could track further west. That could have been a serious situation if it had happened with Laura, obviously. It certainly was a serious situation into, into Newton and also into Orange counties. But Euro has not done well this year, so I'm going with the GFS model. GFS model brings it right on in towards Vermilion Parish and right on into Acadiana. It's done better than the Euro this year. So the Euro does bring it on in right into southeast Texas. I will tell you that. Better hope that doesn't happen. Right now, I'm hedging my bets and going to go with the GFS this round and the UK Met. I think those are doing the best this year.
Sort of a two-parter here.
Yep.
What are the current temperatures of the Gulf water right now, and how does it compare to most years? Is it a lot warmer, significantly so, et cetera?
The water temperatures are into the middle 70s. Right now, it's being passed at 74 74-degree water temperatures. So the water temperatures have cooled because we've had cold fronts come through. So that is the good news. So as this, now I've seen this a lot of times in my career, is that once we get into October, you get cold fronts, these storms come in and they start weakening because the energy is just not there like it is in the Caribbean or the southern Gulf of Mexico. So it's one of the reasons that this is going to weaken. We just don't want a Cat 3. We want this down to a tropical storm would be nice, but I just don't think that's going to happen. This storm is going to be moving, so the faster it moves, the less time it will have an opportunity to weaken. So this is likely going to be a major storm, unfortunately, as it heads towards the Bayou State.
We commonly get this question. It always seems like hurricanes make landfall at night. Any particular reason?
I don't know. That's you know, if anybody can tell me, I would certainly love to learn that, because it's the nature of the atmosphere. It is unpredictable at times. It is, it's just the way it goes as far as timing of these storms. They always seem to do that, don't they? But it looks like the storm will be making landfall over towards Cancun or Cozumel in the morning hours. So can't say that all the time, but that's part of the infinite system of variables associated with the atmosphere.
Let me see here.
Now again, at this point, you know, this general forecast that I had as far as what we're expecting, this is general forecast at this point. I'm not going to go into individual cities and towns. Just a little bit premature. Let's get this to turn to the north. Once that turn happens and materializes, we think that's going to happen, then we'll be able to ascertain, like, what is the weather going to be for, like, Port Arthur versus, say, Jasper, or over towards, say, Batson. So we'll be able to have a little more. It's just very early right now. So I don't want to get into a situation where I have to change forecasts so much because of every time it changes as far as the forecast track. We want to get that turn in before we start trying to do individual forecasts for cities and things of that at that point. So that's where we're at right now. This is a general forecast. Obviously, eastern sections of our viewing area we think are going to be southern and eastern sections of our viewing area will probably see the worst of the weather, and that will probably be Friday evening, Friday night. Say probably after 7 to maybe midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning. It's probably when the window will be at this, based on the speed of it right now, we think that it'll be the worst of the weather. And there are questions.
One more here. Now, obviously this is mostly up to local leadership, but do you anticipate watches, warnings, evacuation orders?
Good question. Whoever asked that question gets 2 gold stars. Yes, by tomorrow, we do expect watches and warnings to be issued, and hurricane watches will likely be issued for the Louisiana coastline coming up tomorrow. Probably, this is my gut, this is speculation. I think we will probably be placed under a tropical storm watch since we're that close to the cone. They'll probably put a hurricane watch from probably Sabine Pass, probably through much of the southern coast of Louisiana, and probably a tropical storm watch maybe west of High Island, or west of Sabine Pass, possibly over towards Galveston. That's my gut feeling at this point.
Any significant storm surge anticipated?
Not here, not on the clean side, nothing significant. That'll be over towards say eastern Cameron Parish, Vermilion Parish, back over into the Atchafalaya River Basin is where the worst of the storm surge will go. Any other questions? Okay, let me do this one more time. This is what we're expecting. And if you're just joining us, let me see if I can go back. Here's the track. It's a Cat 4. It's a forecast to strengthen, maybe to very close to Cat 5. And again, it's pivotal on where the storm makes the turn. The further west that turn occurs, the worse the weather will get for our area, because it is going to track to the north and to the north and east. When it recurves to the north and east, it better not be to the southwest of us or we got problems. But right now, we don't think that's going to happen from all the model data that I've looked at. But again, it heads towards Acadiana. That's about 100 miles to our east. So if you look at the wind field, No hurricane force winds on this track, the center line of this track, okay? If that storm comes obviously further to the west, then we got problems. Right now, I don't think hurricane force winds are going to be an issue. Maybe low-end tropical force wind gusts. That's 39 miles an hour, probably to 45, and that's probably with this track, the tall end of it that we're looking at right now. I just don't think that based on this track, we'll see too much out of this. Some rain and some breezy weather conditions. I think we're in pretty good shape as long as this track holds and when the turn occurs. That's the big question mark. We just don't know exactly when that turn is going to occur precisely, and that will dictate where it makes landfall along the Louisiana coastline. Any other questions?
Is it possible that the storm strength overpowers the shear that's supposed to do the steering here?
No, that's not going to happen.
And some people who came in a little bit late asking if it's going to stall.
No stall. Absolutely not. And the reason is these two time points, see the distance between them? This storm is going to be moving very, very quickly. Not expecting a Harvey, not expecting an Imelda. That's just not going to happen. High confidence. Okay? You see this? This jet stream, this is a jet streak is what we call it. Notice the ridge of high pressure. This jet streak at 34,000 feet, see right there, the winds are going to be blowing at 80 to 90 miles an hour at 34,000 feet. So that is going to, once that storm starts filling this jet streak, it's going to zip to the north and east, okay? So that's why the rainfall of 2 to 3 inches, that's why it's going to be fairly light out of this. And that's why its resident time, not going to be, meaning how long it stays over the area, is not going to be that long. This is not going to be a staller, guaranteed. High confidence. The question is, the low confidence part of the forecast is when does it turn? And how far west does it get as far as its eventual track? Any other questions?
When will we know more about this turn?
That is going to be coming as we go back to this is, I don't think we'll really know until probably Thursday once that turn begins. At least that's the forecast. Thursday, that should pretty much ice it as far as how it's then going to turn off to the north and east. It's just when does that turn occur? We want it to happen sooner because the sooner the turn, the further east it'll go. If it's a lazy turn and that high is stronger than the trough that's over Texas at the forecast time of Friday, then that means the storm will be moving further to the west. So Thursday's the day. I think we'll have a lot of our questions answered on Thursday.
One last one here. This is a good one to wrap up on. What is your gut instinct on this?
Well, right now, I think we're in pretty good shape as long as it behaves and it goes pretty close to this forecast track. I think we'll see minimal impacts in southeast Texas. Let me get to that forecast. This is what I was telling you is that Friday night, 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches. As long as it behaves and we're on the clean side and it's 100 miles away to our east, I think we could see wind gusts to 25. Again, this is an assessment. This is my gut right here telling you what I think is possible. Say it's a little closer, then we're low-end tropical storm force winds. Unless there's a major shift to the west, then this storm will have limited impacts to southeast Texas, and that's what I believe right now. Storm surge will not be an issue as long as we stay on the west side of it. All right, that's what we know. We'll try to have more information for you tonight at 10. It's when the new update comes out, and we'll see if that track shifts west or east, and hopefully it doesn't come any further west. And also, we'll have even a better idea as new data is going to be ingested from the G6 Gulf Stream plane. They don't send that up very often. That's going to be ingesting data. Remember, there are no weather stations out in the Gulf of Mexico or in the Caribbean. It's what we call a data void. So what they have to do, you know what a weather station is. It measures temperature, pressure, wind speed, wind direction, all that data. Those weather stations are all over the U.S. and across land areas of the world. That data goes into our computer models, and then the data is fed in, and then the fancy equations that we use to forecast are used with that data, and then it spits out a forecast and tells us where the storm is going to be, how strong it's going to be. That doesn't happen over the Gulf of Mexico. There are no weather stations over the Gulf of Mexico, so that's why we go out in planes and we fly around the hurricanes and we drop what we call dropsondes. And those dropsondes are weather stations, and they measure temperature, pressure, wind speed, wind direction, all that data as it falls 10,000 feet down to the surface of the water. That data gets fed into our computer models because the models don't know where it is. That, in combination with satellite information and also radar data on that plane, is fed into the computer models. So those planes are increasing in the number that go out. They're going to have round-the-clock Hurricane Hunters out there at 10,000 feet. Then we have the G6, which goes in at, oh goodness, top of the troposphere, probably 60,000 feet or so, 50 to 60,000 feet, and they have dropsondes that fall from 55, 60,000 feet down to the surface of the water. So you sample more data throughout the atmospheric column. So that data goes in, and that's one of the reasons that, if you remember with Rita, we kept saying Matagorda Bay, Matagorda Bay, Matagorda Bay, Matagorda Bay. The G6 went up, and what happened? That storm moved up the coastline. Because why? It had better weather data. That's what we're going to be seeing coming up tonight and tomorrow. And plus the balloons that are going to be going up, the weather balloons that go from the surface all the way to the top of the troposphere, all along the Gulf Coast. Instead of every 12 hours, they're going to be releasing them every 6 hours. So increased data, more data goes and is fed into those computer models, and hopefully they'll do a better job of forecasting where this storm is going to head and the impacts when it reaches that landfall site. Hope you and your family doing well. We will certainly be keeping you updated. Also remember, you can also watch us on YouTube and on our app. Download the app if you don't have it. Certainly may need it coming up over the next few days. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and as always, there's more weather at 12newsnow.com. Stay safe, and we'll see you tonight at 10.